Hello, everyone. My name is Vladimir Chorda, and I would like to welcome you in front of the Start Center, B&H Founders Network and Science and Technology Park, Belgrade, which are hosts of this webinar of the whole B2B sales program with Phil. Also would like to thank Swiss Entrepreneurship Program, which is supporting this program. Swiss Entrepreneurship Program, just in few sentences, is a program that here in the region in Serbia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Macedonia, and Albania is working on ecosystem development and supporting organizations that provide support to startups, to entrepreneurship, to further develop. As well, they provide support directly to the startups in the process of their development. That's the reason why today we have the B2B sales program in order to raise capacities in the field of sales. In the chat, I will leave my contact email. So in case that you want to get more information about the Swiss Entrepreneurship Program and to get connected with some of these organizations that are organizing this B2B sales program, just contact me and I will provide you with further details or further contacts. For today, just to know few things, we have planned that this webinar lasts for 2 hours. Approximately last 20 minutes will be for question and answers, but during the whole webinar, you can interrupt and ask questions by just unmuting yourself and ask Phil whatever you want, or to write a question in the chat, and then I will notice Phil about question that exists and he will answer. So feel free to unmute yourself. Phil also will ask some questions and wait for the answers. So be proactive, be active, and I hope you will enjoy this webinar and join us in the next Tuesday and Tuesday after next. So again, enjoy. Phil, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction. Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. A very quick background about myself. I am operational as a B2B sales consultant based in Berlin, Germany. Today, I'm reaching you from Texas. Yes, in the United States. It's the morning over here because I'm locked down here by choice because I'm from here. So for the moment, I'm away from Berlin, but normally that's where you will find me. And so I help European-based scale-ups and startups to put together sales processes and to build sales teams, to train sales talent sometimes. It's also the case that I join companies as an interim sales director at times, meaning that I come in for 3 months or 6 months or 9 months to build up the entire sales organization and then walk away when it's all up and running, self-sufficient, and operating with transparency. So if no questions regarding my background, then I'll move on to introduce the program. And the program basically involves 3 meetings. So today, then 1 in a week and another 1 a week after that, if I'm not mistaken, all at the same time on the same day of the week. And we will cover the following 6 topics during those sessions, 2 topics per day. So today we will talk about gaining an understanding of what a sales team does. It's another way of saying understanding sales habits. The value of this segment is that let's imagine that you are the founder of an organization or you are part of an organization and you are maybe small enough that you still need to do the sales for the company, even though you're a founder, or you're part of an organization and your responsibility is maybe to put together the sales team and the sales effort, or you're a salesperson at a particular organization. In any case, super worthwhile to understand what should a salesperson do on their own as an automatic instinct, basically. What should they be doing without needing to tap you on the shoulder to tell you, hey, what should I be doing now to stay active? So how should they stay active in the background? as if the sales team was a machine that you turn on, and then you hear the hum of the motor, just, and the machine is doing something on its own. Okay, so it's about knowing what comes out of that sales team. The other side of the coin for the same topic is, what should you not expect from the sales team? Maybe that's even more important, because many times, let's take the picture again where you might be a founder of an organization and you have always hated to do the sales, which you have had to do until now for the organization. So you hire your first sales team, even if it's a team of 1 or 2 people, and you tell yourself, thank God, I never have to look at sales again. Well, you can't walk away from sales, even after you hire salespeople. It's important then for us to discuss what activities do not belong to the sales team, which are still part of the sales topic, because if it doesn't belong to the sales team, then it's probably still a strategic piece which belongs to you. So what I'm recommending against the idea, some of you might have it, some of you might not, that once you have a sales team, you're saved. They're salespeople. They should know what to do. Let them figure everything out. Well, it's that part about figuring everything out, which I would not leave to the sales team. It's something you still need to keep and then give to the sales team, like sales processes, like a definition of the clients we need to be looking for, like a curated sales message. That means a refined sales message, which you own as a strategic piece, instead of just letting the sales team cook up their own stories about how to describe your product and service. So that's the first section. Second section will be jumping into something I just mentioned, the creation of the sales message itself. More detail about that when we get there. And then for the next days, we go into looking at what are the primary components of a sales process, or how do I put together a sales process. Closely related to that, how do I document things as my sales process is running, and how do I measure KPIs, which is another word for statistics, conversion figures that track the performance of the sales effort. And then 2 weeks from now, the next 2 topics, we'll jump into how to create a list of potential clients. Probably more important than that, discussing the importance of creating a list of potential clients. This is a good example of one of those things that belong to you, not something you just let the sales team cook up on their own. Similar to the sales message, something that belongs to you, not something you let them cook up on their own. And then leaving the best for last. My favorite of all the topics is the bullet number 6, outreach methodology. Outreach is the process of reaching out with your sales message and trying to engage people into discussions about your product and service. And that may involve emails. That may involve phone calls. That may involve going and knocking on someone's door in person. And all 3 of those examples, the email or a personal visit to the office or a call might be cold. That means you might be doing them by surprise, calling someone who never expected to hear from you. So that last part, I say it's the best for last, because it's about learning how to do that and doing it in a way that you can live with, in a way that you can be satisfied with yourself at the end of the day, avoiding any nasty stereotypes or prejudices that Hollywood may have given you about what a salesperson really is, you know. So just a quick preview, we tend to think that someone who cold calls is a slimy sort of snake oil salesperson, you know, someone who calls and they shouldn't be calling, basically. So we'll look at how to do your cold calls without playing that role of someone who shouldn't be calling, of someone who's pushing an unnecessary product. All these things that would keep you from doing it, we'll find the right mentality and the right tactics so that we are actually a relevant cold caller versus a vulgar, unwelcomed cold caller. Okay, so those are the sections we're going to cover. But it would be really interesting to hear from you guys, since the title of the series is just B2B sales program. Maybe you have some special wishes about something that you would like to see covered within today or the next couple of sessions that we're going to have together. So I'll wait for you guys to maybe mention some questions or wishes that you might have for the time we will spend together.
So if you want to talk, just unmute yourself and speak freely.
And I'm not going to proceed until I hear one wish. At least.
If I may just add, because I had the pleasure to listen to workshops of yours, and I just a note for everyone listening there, a note for you. I know that it meant a lot if you could use as many as concrete examples of the things you're talking. So it would be great if you, when we talk, because we will talk a lot about, let's say, fluffy things, let's call them this today. But if you could give both examples of how to do it and how not to do it from your experience, it would really mean a lot for us to understand where to put that target at. That's all.
Cool. Okay, so my question to the crowd again is there anything that you are hoping that we cover in the next few days that they could still be related to the bullets I have here, but maybe a question you have that you would love to see answered during these workshops? And considering there's about 20 of you out there, I'm guessing I'm going to hear at least one question, one request. In fact, I won't proceed until I hear one. I don't hear anything, guys.
You should volunteer someone. That's what I do.
Should?
If no one volunteers, I volunteer someone. Yeah.
Okay, I will jump in.
My
name is Dino. My name is Dino, and I'm CEO of Misia software development company. What I would love to hear is how to, let's say, acquire some clients on the markets where we don't have like anyone like dedicated person for sales.
Yeah.
How to reach out to clients, how to actually compete with people working on those markets.
Okay, perfect. So it's more like markets where you aren't right now, not so much markets where you don't have dedicated salespeople, right? Because some salesperson will still need to reach out there, even if they're not dedicated for that market.
Okay.
Do I have that right?
That's exactly. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Exactly.
Okay, great.
Phil,
all right.
and we have three sort of inputs questions on the chat.
All right, sounds
so
good.
From Bratislav Bojic, how to quickly profile a customer. From Svetlana, what is most important from the list? And from Edis, maybe something about how to set a realistic sales target for yourself or your team.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys. That's good stuff. Okay, so I've noted them. I'll probably come back to them when it is related to one of these topics, or if it's not related to one of these topics, I will just answer it in the, did we mention towards the end of every session, including today's session, we'll have about a 20, 15-minute Q&A. So if I haven't resolved some answers, we can cover it at that moment.
Yeah, and just for a second, there is additional question from Edis, also regarding outreach. I've seen many conversations recently regarding sales outreach on LinkedIn. So something about whether it is a viable method and how to do it properly.
Okay, great. That's the best topic. I've got it there at the end, but nothing prevents me from saying something about that before the end of today's session. So I will do that. Okay. All right. Now I'll move on. Remember, the name of this program is B2B sales program, which is pretty generic, but we still need to define what are we talking about. So let's take the word sales. What do we mean by sales? It would be worth for us all to agree, what are we talking about when we say sales? Because believe it or not, it can be interpreted into a lot of things. So one interpretation, for example, that I will rule out today is that many times you hear sales, and this happens to me a lot in Germany, not in other countries. I don't know why, but in Germany, they always think upselling, organic growth. And is that a sale, technically speaking? An upsell or organic growth means you already have a client and you're billing them 500 euros per month. Wouldn't that be nice? That's a nice fat amount, right? And now you need to figure out the way to bill them 750 euros per month. So it's 250 euro increase. It would be with some additional service, right? Some additional add-on that justifies the increase in price, not just that you increased your price for the same thing. So upsell is that you sell them more of your product. They're consuming more of it now than before. Yeah, that's a sale, but I never go into that area personally. To me, that's more of an account management, a client success topic. It involves some sales skills for sure to reach out to your existing clients and convince them to pay you more for more product. But strictly speaking, I don't call that a sale. So to me, a sale is the process of acquiring other organizations so that you can work with them. That's going to be my operational definition for all of these sessions, you guys. It is the acquisition of other organizations so that you can work with them. So what is one kind of organization that we acquire? Maybe the obvious type of organization that we acquire to work with them is client. A company that becomes your client. And then it's a work relationship. So basically I supply them, I service them, and they pay me. And the sale happened a while ago when I first acquired them for that relationship. But client acquisition is not the only type of sale. There's at least one other type of organization you need to acquire in order to work with them. And your business model depends on it. It's a tough question, but can anyone think of what else do you acquire if not a client? Any ideas? Think about pipelines, you guys. And sometimes you have your whole pipeline of potential clients, and that might be a challenge. That might present a lot of work. But if I have 26 people on this call, some of you have business models where the pipeline is not on the client side. That's your big clue. The client is on, the pipeline is on another side where there are no clients. What kind of organizations would you be acquiring in that scenario? I'm going to wait for, I don't want anyone to be shy on this call. Okay, if you can just answer the question, you don't have to be right. Just please provide some feedback.
Hi there, Ayub here.
Hey.
Do you mean vendors or suppliers or
Yes,
something?
perfect. Great job. You see, you guys, don't be shy. So you might have a client pipeline that represents a sales effort. Some of you might need to invest a lot of work on your supplier pipeline, and that might require a lot of effort. That depends completely on your business model. Some of you might have a business model where client acquisition is no problem at all, or it's handled through marketing. Your client side might be consumers, but you have an entire saga, an entire difficult task acquiring suppliers. So sometimes you have a supply side where it's not like the supply is just waiting for you to become their client. It might be a very tight, very guarded supply, and the hard work might be in convincing them to work with you. Even though you're paying them for something, it might be hard to convince them. Let me give you an example. I won't ask for examples, I'll just give you one. Imagine that your business model depends on ad space. Ad space. That's a very tight thing. There isn't enough ad space in the world. Banners on websites, for example, that is very limited real estate. So it might be really hard to reach out to a banner network and convince them, hey, you should be working with me. Now, I realize there's a lot of programmatic stuff which just takes care of that, but isn't it true you need to bid more every time to have the right banner space? So sometimes it's just a programmatic thing. Other times it is a B2B outreach process on the supply side, where you bring a value proposition to a potential supplier, and they have to be persuaded to work with you. Okay, so we have a sales process on the supply side. We have a sales process on the client side, and there's actually a third situation. Let's see if someone is brave enough to guess the third situation where you might need a pipeline to curate and work hard with the pipeline. There's client side, there's supplier side, and there's the third situation. Can anyone think of it? It begins with a P and it proceeds with an A-R-T-N-E-R. What was that word? Partner, everyone.
Partners,
The word is partner. So your sales process your business model might actually have no worries on the client side, no worries on the supply side, but it requires partnerships. So acquisition of a client may not be difficult for you, but the source where you can find these clients might be the only thing you need to solve for your company. You may realize that it requires the acquisition of partners. What's an example of a partner? An organization which is, let me just put it this way, although it doesn't have to be, an organization which is vastly larger than you. And they have the thousands, tens of thousands of clients that you would like to access. And once you meet a client, no problem acquiring them. Maybe it's a no-brainer, a really easy, it's like an offer they can't refuse. But your trouble is just getting in front of those potential clients. So maybe you reach out to insurance companies if that is thematically related to your business model, or banks if that was thematically related to your business model, or country clubs, just to think of something dramatically different, if that was thematically related to your business model. Take out country, just clubs, organizations where there are thousands of members for whatever topic, and that when you reach out to a partner and the process is the same as client acquisition or supplier acquisition, you need to persuade them to work with you. In all of these cases, you would need to be communicating some win-win relationship, which is another way of saying a value proposition, where there is value in that for that partner in working with you. So when you approach clients, the question is, what's in it for the client? That's what you need to phrase into a value proposition. When you reach out to suppliers, the question is the same. What's in it for that supplier to work with me? And you phrase that value proposition for them. Partners, same story. What's in it for the partner? Why should they, gain value by working with me? So that's what sales is, you guys. It's not just client acquisition. It's supply side acquisition, vendor, as one of you said, acquisition, or partners. Really quickly on the partner side, it could also apply to supplier and client. It always boils down to your business model. Is it a one partnership and you're done kind of existence? Or is it a continual, you must always gain new and more partners, because maybe you gain a partner and you squeeze out the utility out of them in 60 days, and then you need the next partner and the next. So whenever you need more than one client to get by, and more than one supplier to get by, and more than one partner to get by, that's where sales processes are important. Something that's scalable and repetitive and constant. And we'll move on. That's the definition we're going to operate with for sales. Any questions, comments, or objections at this moment?
Can you just give examples? Because I didn't get this last part, when you actually are changing partners quite quickly? I mean, when does that usually happen?
Well, we thought of like a bank that you might approach. The idea is to get to communicate your offer to all of their clients. So that opens up the world to 10,000 more clients. You're going to use those up, because if you sign up all 10,000, then as an entrepreneur, you're not going to stop there. You're going to want to keep growing and growing and growing until you own the planet, more than Bezos owns the planet. Total world dominance until regulation stops you short. That's the mission of capitalism, by the way, you guys. We need regulation, because otherwise, me as a company, I will become the supreme leader of planet Earth. That is the true goal of an entrepreneur. We welcome regulation so that society can stay nice and normal for everyone, okay? So after you've conquered the 10,000 clients of that bank, I need the next and the next and more and more and more and more. So that's an example of needing more than one partner to keep going. All right, so good. Now that we've also established the dark side of capitalism, let's move on. So as promised, sales habits. What to expect from a sales team. I mentioned that a sales team, when you bring them in, or if you are still going to operate as the salesperson for your organization, you want to hold yourself to a certain discipline. If you have that sales team, you're busy with other things, but you would need to hear the hum of that machine going. You would need to know there's a machine which is working constantly. Maybe there's a dial on that machine that goes faster or slower, but wherever I left the dial, it needs to be running at that speed, and I can depend on it to be doing whatever the machine is designed to do. So in this slide, I'd like to share with you my opinion of what is the rundown, what is the list of things that you would expect a sales team to do on automatic pilot. Okay, so these are very straightforward and very simple. Feel free to jump in with questions or objections, which you may have. You might say, Phil, I disagree. And that's okay. That'll make the conversation even more interesting. I would offer you my views on that. You could offer your views on it. And then we stay friends. So at that point, we don't have to agree. So first point is, the sales team needs to be in your organization and continually researching for who are the decision makers among the companies that we are targeting and what are their contact details. So basically, it implies that there should be a decision, there should be a consensus on who at an organization should I reach out to with my sales message. And then the answer sounds like we should reach out to the CEO, or we should reach out just to like director or head of level for the relevant topic matter. And the sales team is going to take that definition of the decision maker, and they're going to look for those people, get their name and their last name and their contact details. It means that the sales team is given some kind of list of target companies, and the sales team is given a definition of the kind of decision maker. That belongs to you as the founder to create these strategic components, not leaving it up to the sales team to just decide, oh, who are we calling today and who should we call in there? Okay. So with that definition and with that target list, then sales team is continually researching for these details. Then the next thing that you would expect them to do, you would, let's reword this bullet into outreach. You would expect them to then reach out. What happened in step one? They found contact information. They found names of people. Now it's a matter of reaching out to contact those decision makers and to uphold a level of activity. raise your hand if you remember what that metaphor, that picture that I painted about the sales team is a machine, and it's going and it's humming, and if anything, there's one dial on it, which is the speed. Slower, faster, wherever you leave the dial, that's the speed at which the machine is going to work. So the level of activity for performing cold calls or outreach or cold emails needs to be agreed with the sales team. So if you tell the sales team, hey, you guys, this week, or maybe this entire year on a weekly basis, we are reaching out to 20 fresh new companies from our target list, 20 companies per week. Then the sales team would need to make sure that they are working at that activity level. Maybe they could also overachieve and go beyond that activity level, but the activity level you agree with them it becomes the rules. There would be actions or consequences if they were operating below the agreed activity level. And needless to say, the activity level, one of your questions already, how to set realistic sales goals, sales targets. One of the targets is the activity level, way at the beginning, before we even talk about conversion, outreach, leading to a deeper conversation. That's already one conversion figure from just the outreach to having a deep conversation. But one of the goals that you want to set is the number of companies we reach out to just to start with. Okay, so that would be something that the sales team is doing once you agree to the activity level that they should uphold. Next thing you would expect from a sales team is that they schedule next steps with the decision makers that they reach, that they schedule demonstrations if that's required. Whatever your sales stages require, it's up to the salesperson to schedule those stages and to conduct those stages. Okay, so pretty straightforward so far, right? Find someone to call that person and schedule next steps with them. This should all be happening without the salesperson coming to you all the time and tapping you and saying, hey, what do I do next? These are things they know they need to do. We have 3 more bullets here where it gets a little bit more nebulous, but let's go through this together. The next thing that salespeople would be doing on their own is to record all communication. In other words, to document anything that has been said to clients and the reaction, the feedback, the responses that potential clients have had, to document all of this on a CRM platform. So if any of you are familiar with CRM platforms, could you name a couple, could you state a couple by name? So who knows the name of a CRM? Volunteers? Your favorite CRM?
Salesforce.
Okay, did I hear HubSpot? What else did I hear?
Salesforce.
Salesforce, right? There's Pipedrive as well. That's one of my favorites. Okay, and so what is a CRM platform, you guys? We'll go into that for sure in the documentation and KPIs section, which I think is next week. But basically, it's your database. It's your database together with a user interface, which is very useful for the sales process. It allows you with relative ease to record the minutes, the notes from a call. It usually has automation where it absorbs all of the emails that you exchange with clients. And in any case, in a very few words, can someone tell me why a CRM? What is the benefit of using a CRM with a lot of discipline?
Rundown.
Say again, please.
Rundown.
What do you mean by that?
Well, in my, let's say, personal opinion, its purpose of a CRM is to optimize the entire process, sales process of sales team. So to trigger different activities, to track all of the data that needs to be tracked in the entire sales process. and to show different roles in the platform. What is their task? When does it finish? And when does another task from another salesperson starts or another team member?
Okay, lovely. Thank you for that. Does anyone have something to add?
There's a quote I like to add, like, you cannot improve what you don't measure. So I think it's a nice way of measuring our success and analyzing
That's right.
it.
The CRM helps you to track the KPIs and things like that. That's for sure. I'm going to add a few things from my side as well. A CRM provides transparency. That means that there are no secrets here. Whatever a salesperson discussed with a client, whatever the client told us in return, there's no shame, there's no secrets. It all gets documented in the CRM, and anyone else in the organization with a login to the CRM, and I would always say everyone should have a login to the CRM, can go in and just explore the conversations, maybe even during lunch break and just as a hobby and just for fun. Just browse around the CRM to see what did someone say in a recent conversation. There's all kinds of important feedback inside of that CRM that it's not only useful for the sales team to know, it's useful for the entire organization. So the CRM helps to break that stigma that a sales team is a bunch of gurus that make magic happen. So we can just isolate them and let these wizards do their thing. Isolation is your enemy in this case. Transparency is the opposite of isolation. It allows the engineers in the company. It allows the account managers in the company. It allows the management in the company to face reality. Reality for any company boils down to potential client feedback or existing client feedback. So either prospect client feedback or existing client feedback. And that's the reality. We cannot change how the market behaves. And so we would be smart to always adapt to the climate, to the environment. And it all starts by listening very closely to what existing clients and potential clients have to say about our product, about our services, and so on, and adjusting as quickly as possible to the environment, adapting to the environment. So the sales team certainly not is an isolated entity. It needs to be the connector between feedback in the environment and anyone in the organization who cares to adapt, to work towards adapting to the feedback from the environment. Okay. All right. So that's why this is a big, big deal for the salespeople to have the discipline to record everything in the CRM. So you guys, this is going to be a super easy rhetorical question. All right. So be ready to be the first one to answer it. When is the right time to record the details from a phone call? Shall we do it tomorrow morning, nice and early, because we like to get up early and do a good job? Should we do it at the end of today before I forget more details? Or should I do it when I have a super important phone call coming, but before I start that important super phone call, the minutes of the call I just finished now, before the important phone call that I have next? Which one of those sounds good to you?
Like immediately after the call?
Immediately after the call. Yes, I told you it was a super easy rhetorical question. It is priority number one to record the call, type the notes of the call. Some CRMs let you literally record the call if that's legal wherever you're calling. And of course that saves you time. But it goes to show you the value is to have it there immediately after the communication event has happened. One argument is you might forget by the afternoon some important details. You may be writing notes on paper the whole time, and then they are safely there until you record them into the CRM. But what happens if you somehow lose this notebook in the interim between now and the afternoon? But the biggest argument, you guys, is that it's there for the rest of the company to see it, and it's there in real time. Because what happens if, without knowing, you as a salesperson, without knowing, someone else needed the information from your call, and it happened that 10 minutes after your call, someone needed that information for some critical reason. So unlikely event, but it can happen. There's Murphy's Law. Remember that, Murphy's Law. If it can happen, it will happen. You know, it is likely to happen. So for whatever critical reason, someone else would need the feedback from that call. And if you didn't put in the details from that call into the CRM the minute after the phone call, then no matter, you may have gotten into a very important phone call immediately after, but then whatever critical event required the feedback from that phone call would fail because it wouldn't be there in real time on a timely manner. So this is something to be very, very hard on your sales team about. Compliance to using the CRM and using it punctually. Okay, a couple more points. Again, what would you expect the sales team to be doing like a well-oiled, humming machine? You would expect them to maintain, and here is where I'm really going to offer a lot of interpretation because I realize the words are a little cosmic, to maintain a visible pipeline and a KPI dashboard. Okay, so what am I referring to here? Reports. It's up to the sales team to make sure that reports that measure their conversions, reports that measure their activity are accurate. These reports are living in the CRM, so it's quite closely related to the previous point. It's about filling data into the CRM on a timely, punctual manner so that reports are always showing the right information. What I do want to break down for you guys is the difference between what is a pipeline report and what is a KPI dashboard. Okay, so real quickly, I'm going to ask you guys, what is a pipeline? What do we mean by pipeline in the world of sales? I know you guys, at least half of you probably know the answer to this question, so don't be shy.
Sales channels.
Sales channels?
Yep.
Okay, I think that comes close to the answer. A pipeline, very generically, is a list of potential clients that you are communicating with, that you are engaged with in dealings. So basically, a pipeline report takes that one step further. It's the visualization of the pipeline. So the pipeline is a list of potential clients with whom you're dealing on trying to convert them into your client. The client pipeline is the visual representation of that, and it boils down to a certain item that exists in CRMs called deal records. So you open up a deal record when you know you're dealing with a potential client. So a pipeline report is something that I'm going to try to paint for you here, playing around with Zoom here. Let me see if I can achieve this. A pipeline report, whoops, sorry. Let me see if I can do this. Sorry, guys. I should have practiced this before. Trying to annotate something. Okay, never mind. I'm just going to describe it to you. So a pipeline report, in a very traditional sense, looks like a spreadsheet. So a spreadsheet has rows and a spreadsheet has columns. Okay, are you all with me so far? Okay, so imagine a spreadsheet with maybe 6 or 7 columns and as many rows as are necessary. The reason that I say as many rows as are necessary is because in a traditional pipeline report, which is what do we represent? What do we represent row by row? Anybody?
Phil, we kind of lost you for last 30 seconds or something. Not sure why.
We have lost Phil totally
Completely.
because he's not online.
His internet died. Amazing.
Yeah, we'll just wait for a few seconds for Phil to come back.
Let me try to write him directly and let him know if he's still keeping talking and waiting for us to reply. You're back. Wait. Vlada, you have to unmute.
Yeah, I unmute him.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome back.
Thank you very much. It looks like when I started trying to use the drawing functionality, something happened. So can you see my my PowerPoint again?
Yes.
Yes,
okay.
We can.
All right. Okay, you guys. So I don't know where I cut off, but I was trying to paint a mental picture of what a traditional pipeline report looks like. And it tends to look like a spreadsheet where we have a number of columns and we have as many rows as are necessary for the pipeline report. And so the question I was posing to the group is, I mentioned there would be as many rows as are necessary. That's because each row represents something that could be greater or smaller. What do we represent row by row? Does anyone have a guess? So you guys, the question is, in each of the rows.
Someone says clients.
Yep.
Correct. Yes. Clients are what we represent row by row by row. But it's not a list. It's not a parking lot of clients we would like to have. It's not our target list of clients, our list of target clients. It is clients that we are dealing with. So that means we have live conversations with these particular clients on the road to signing them on as clients. So now there are also columns. We have the rows, which are as many clients as we are talking to. And then there are the columns, which is a limited number of columns because you decide which columns you want to configure. And what do we show on the columns? We show basically values. We show fields that contain data. So what kind of data would be useful to show on a pipeline report where every row is a client and then in the columns we have the opportunity to show certain data? What could be useful to have on a pipeline report?
Okay, for of course, different industry, different vertical requires different data, but we can say that's company name, point of contact or buyer persona that we are talking with, maybe position in the company, and some basic data about the company and the position of the person.
Okay.
Service that we are talking about, is it product or different service that we are selling, potential value of the deal, progress, and maybe last comment. That would be basic pipeline.
All right. That's a very full picture. So in the columns, we have the name of the client and then followed by useful, the contact name of the person inside of that organization. Next column, the product. If we have 3 packages, the package that we're offering them, is it A, B, or C package? Next, the price that they are going to pay for this particular deal, which is it's called the amount. Another column tends to be the date by when it feels like we will sign the deal. that means that after every phone call you have or every meeting you have with a potential client, you might have a different opinion now, an updated opinion about when we will close the deal, which means you can go directly to modify that particular value of when the expected close date might be. And then you also mentioned something interesting, which was any last comments about of what's going on with your client. I highly recommend a CRM will allow you to configure custom fields. I highly recommend configuring a field called next step, where you are wording the expectation that the client has or what they are waiting for you to do. So the next step field for every deal, for every client would say something like, client has committed to doing XYZ, or client is expecting from me XYZ. And that's a super important field that salespeople need to update and fill out all of the time. Because I would say, from my way of thinking, that field is the moment of truth. It's the moment of truth about whether this dealing that we have with the client is active and alive and progressing, or whether it's just an illusion in your head. So is it an illusion in your head that we are actually dealing with this client on the way to close a contract? Or is it an illusion, or is it reality? So another way to maybe express the point I'm trying to make. It is not enough justification that maybe there's a potential client and they like you. There's a lot of goodwill. They think your product is cool. But there's no expectation on the client side that they will ever buy your product. So that would be a gray zone where you may not know, should I have a deal in my pipeline for this client, or should I not have a deal in my pipeline for this client? If there's no concrete next step of what are we doing next and when are we doing that, then there should not be a deal for that client. Goodwill toward you is not enough to justify that you keep a deal in that pipeline report. So basically, the use for a pipeline report is so that you can create sales forecasts. You might have a sales forecast in your sales plan, but this is the realistic sales forecast, the comparing performance to planning. This is the performance forecast, because it tells you what companies am I actually in conversations with, times what is the value of the deals for each one of these deals, and then it tells you by what date you might close a contract. So if an investor calls you today and they say, hey, Phil, what is your expectation for Q2 of 2020, the second quarter of 2020? What value in deals are you going to close? The answer to that question is to look directly at your sales pipeline report and filter out only deals that have a closing date of Q2 and observe the amount for each deal. And you hope that all that information is accurate. You hope that your sales team has been putting accurate information into the fields, like amount, like expected close date, because then if the information is updated and accurate, then you can safely add the value of all the deals that are likely to close this quarter, and you have an answer for your investor. We are likely to close 20,000 euros in new contracts this quarter. That's the real power of the pipeline report. And your answer would be bad information. It would be corrupt if your sales team was not maintaining the integrity of the information in that pipeline report. So a long explanation, but it's important. It's an important thing, pipeline. The other part of this section is KPI dashboard. The dashboard is a collection of reports as well, but they're unlike the one we just described. It's not a spreadsheet with columns and rows. KPI dashboard, it implies it concentrates on conversion figures. So basically, if you decide that it's important to measure the conversion from the outreach stage to the holding of deeper discussions with potential clients, so that's basically called engagement, from outreach into engaging them in deeper conversations. If you thought that was an important KPI, then you would build a report. If you have a sales team of 2 and there's John and there's Sally, there would be the KPI report, conversion from outreach to discovery meeting for, what did I say, John? And there would be the separate KPI dashboard report for Sally, measuring the same conversion from outreach to discovery meeting. If you thought it was valuable to measure the conversion from discovery meeting to sending a proposal, well, let's discuss really quickly. I mentioned engagement is what's behind and going from outreach to discovery meeting. What would we be measuring from discovery meeting to sending a proposal? What the conversion figure there would be revealing, what skill would it be revealing? Or if the conversion is low, what would it be exposing as a skill that should be practiced, that should be modified?
Presenting our product.
Presenting your product, that's right. That's correct. Because in a discovery meeting, in a deeper discussion, you might have a demo integrated, or simply you may just have the opportunity to describe our product properly during
showing value.
Showing value, exactly. That's a very good point. Let me bring in something which is actually a sales tactic. So as we go through the webinars that we have for the next couple of weeks, there will be a lot of recommendations, such as what I have on slides boils down to recommendations, but I will also be bringing in tactics. Tactics are skills or abilities that, like going to the gym, you need to go and practice and practice and practice and practice until practice makes perfect. So one super important tactic that you will hear me repeating a few times is the idea that sales involves asking questions, asking a lot of questions. So maybe this opens another topic, because a lot of people who have not sold products before, they think that salespeople have magic personalities, or they say magic words that convince people. I'm very much against looking at things in that way. Even the concept of persuading, convincing, I don't think it's helpful for a conversation like the one we're having right now. The alternative to this concept that there are magic personalities and magic words and somehow convincing people, the alternative is to see it as a process of investigating the situation of your potential client until you uncover and uncover and uncover as much as you can, so that you can build a case. What I mean by building a case is so that you can tell them, based on everything that we have discussed and everything we have uncovered, I recommend the following. And if you're lucky, you're recommending your product for a particular price. What is it called to recommend a product for a particular price? That's called a proposal. So if you're measuring conversion from discovery meeting to proposal, what you're measuring there, in my opinion, is the salesperson's ability to ask questions, to ask hard questions, to uncover the problem, so that once they get to the heart of the problem, they can make a case. And the case sometimes is, dear client, I actually don't see a case between us. I don't see a fit. I don't see that your problem matches our solution. That can sometimes be the correct, the necessary outcome. However, it's not our mission, right? To just be happy with not getting there. So measuring conversion from deeper discussion to sending a proposal, to me, would be a matter of, if someone scores low on that conversion, sitting down with them and helping them to practice asking questions. Because sometimes you ask a question such as, okay, everyone, so how do you like our product? Or more like, do you like our product? Yeah, Phil, it's nice. Okay, great. And then what should we be, when can I contact you again? And the answer is, Phil, it's fine, just leave it with us. We'll come back to you. That's not enough, you guys. When we hear that, we need to ask a follow-up question. A weaker or less experienced salesperson might just go like, oh, okay, sounds great. Then I'll just wait for you to get back to me. And that's what you would need to train, probably, when someone scores low in converting from deeper conversation to having the ability to send out a proposal. So just to finish the idea, what follow-up question could we ask when someone tells us, oh, Phil, we like it, but just leave it with us. We'll come back to you. If we ask hard questions, if we are trained and in the habit of asking hard questions, what is our follow-up question to that?
When can we expect their answer?
Yeah, so you can basically repeat their answer saying, that's great, happy for you to come back to me. When do you think that might be? You're basically redundant until you get the answer to that question, okay? And then they might say, oh, well, Phil, you know, give us a couple months and we'll come back to you. Don't call us, we'll call you. Now we have that much more information. A couple months, okay, that normally means 2 months. We can ask a follow-up question because we still have not gotten to the bottom. The question could sound like, okay, sounds great. Always be appreciative of the answer. Say thank you. Even if someone just spit in your eye, say thank you for that. And ask your follow-up question. The follow-up question I can think of in that point is, okay, sounds wonderful, 2 months. That can go by quite quickly, right? Out of curiosity, what will be happening between now and 2 months? And the answer is, well, we're going to discuss it internally. I'm still not at the bottom of the answer. Okay, great. And how many discussions are those? Or, you know, what's the nature of those discussions? So until they tell you, Phil, don't ask any more questions. Or, Phil, that question is inappropriate, I'm not going to answer it. That's your signal to give up asking questions. But the lesson is, don't stop yourself from asking questions because you assume, oh, it would be inappropriate for me to ask this question. Or, oh, it's bad manners to ask this question. Or, oh, they look tired, let me not ask him more questions. Nope. The tactic to learn here is sales is about asking questions until you get to the bottom of a problem. The only person who should stop you from getting to the bottom of the problem is the client themselves. By signaling clearly to you, you have no right to ask that question. All you need is one indication that you have no right to ask that question to go like, oh, thank you for telling me. Now I know my limit, and sorry if I went too far. It's easy enough to step back from that and still maintain the respect of your audience. The most they can blame you for is that you were professional enough to want to investigate the situation profoundly. You are investigating situations profoundly to do good for the potential client. So your intentions are in the right place. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. We went on a tangent, but we were talking about the KPI dashboards. Those concentrate on performance per salesperson. And then how can we help that salesperson when some conversions are lower than what their peers have? Okay, the last of the things that you would expect a sales team to be doing in the background by themselves is to ask you as the founders to participate in a weekly internal sales meeting. So if it's not obvious to you guys, the statement looks a little strange. Normally, management obligates salespeople to come to a weekly internal sales meeting. Here I'm suggesting the opposite, that salespeople would obligate you, management, to come into a sales meeting with them once a week. So the motivation that salespeople have when you force them to come to a sales meeting is almost zero. The typical internal weekly sales meeting looks like a really boring round of reporting where you ask salesperson number one, John, how was your week and how was your pipeline? Oh, well, had a good week, spoke to a lot of people, going really well. And so hope to sign 2 deals this week. Okay, thank you, John. Now, Sally, same answer. Oh, had a really good week, good conversations, going really well. I hope to sign 2 deals this week. So you can spend an hour out of your life thoroughly wasting that time in a weekly sales meeting, which is reporting. People are usually not motivated to go to a reporting meeting because they always feel they end up looking bad from whatever they report. But how can you convert the weekly sales meeting into something that salespeople want and they desire and they hunger for it? If they hunger for something, then the sales meeting would have to provide the fresh meat to satisfy their hunger, right? So what do salespeople want at the end of the day? What do salespeople want to make by being a salesperson? They want to make a lot of what?
Sale, revenue.
For the company, but for themselves, what do they want to make? They want a lot of?
Recognition.
Okay, you guys are very noble. Congratulations. Salespeople want to make a lot of money, 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 money. So usually the way that salespeople are compensated, there's their salary. Usually there's also some reward for the additional contracts that they sign. Meaning if they sign one contract, they still have their salary and they have a little reward for that one contract. If they sign 2 or 3 or 4, they're making more and more and more and more money, even if it's by little increments. So salespeople can get very obsessed about maximizing the number of deals they close so that they can make money, money, money. So what in the world would make salespeople come to sales meetings if the sales meeting is not about reporting, but it's about you, the founder, helping them to close their deals? So sometimes salespeople need your help to close their deal. Sometimes they simply need to know, can we give this discount or not? Because if not, we will lose this deal. We will not close it. As the salesperson, I'm telling you, management, that I have already tried all of the standard negotiating tactics, but these people will not budge. So the founder who participates in the sales meeting might have one more smart idea. The answer could be, try telling them this, see what effect that has. Or you as the founder might just go like, okay, great, here's your 25% discount. Go get them, champ. Okay? But it's not only the founder who might be able to have a good, clever idea, such as, oh, try this one more tactic. It could be the other salespeople in the sales meeting. One person, the idea is that a salesperson comes into the sales meeting ready and prepared to talk about the deals they are having trouble with, the deals that are burning down, the deals where if I don't get some bright idea or a discount or a giveaway from someone else in that sales meeting, then I'm not going to close this deal. I'm going to lose this deal. So other people in the room might offer that idea. The salesperson explains the situation they're suffering through, the problem they're having with a particular deal. And maybe another salesperson says, oh, I had a case like that 2 weeks ago. You know, I did this or told them a certain thing that changed the situation. And then they said, yes, why don't you try? And then comes that piece of advice. Peers can have the right answer. So anything, right? Maybe the person says, oh, you know, you're talking to the German branch of the same company that I signed in Italy. And you know what happened? I went to the headquarters in London and I asked a few questions there. And then that put pressure on these guys to turn around and sign your deal. So that would be an idea, you guys. You know, if it seems that a deal doesn't proceed and there was a similar environment that worked before, such as going to the headquarters in London that then put pressure on the German entity, what else would you have to lose by going above their head? Because the sales meeting would be a place where we only discuss deals that are in the intensive care unit of the hospital already. The person is already on a breathing machine. So who cares if we inject this weird medicine into them? Maybe it brings them back to life, you know, just to bring in a example from our current COVID environment to illustrate this example. Okay, you guys.
But
so
sorry,
yes,
shouldn't that sales meeting also be about fine-tuning the sales machine to getting inputs from the sales team on improvements, not just waiting that to come from the founder?
So a salesperson would come into that sales team, into that sales meeting, and they have a deal in mind where they're having trouble, and they expose everything about it. So in exposing everything about it, out comes feedback that the client has, out comes problems the client has with maybe our price or our proposal structure. And then what happens if we see a trend, we see a pattern? The next salesperson says, you know, really similar. That's kind of the same feedback and the same problems I'm having. So in listening to the trouble that there is from deal to deal, yes, we can find patterns which would lead us to improving something if we see a realistic pattern and we need to adapt to our environment. So if it's always price, then maybe we really should be thinking there's enough feedback from enough potential clients, and we're expressing those problems during the weekly sales meeting, that it does provide a reason to fine-tune and improve something about us, whether it's the sales process itself or price or features of the product. So yes, to your question, and from my point of view, it would come from real life cases. Each one of those deals are real life case studies. So that's kind of how I see those two things coming together. Okay, so we have 6 things that sales people would be doing in the background. You would expect them to stay busy doing this all the time. Is there anything missing in your opinion? Because this is my full list. Is there anything that you see missing on here? Okay, if no one has anything, then I'm going to say something. If we rewind to 1950 and you picture a boardroom and it's maybe a weekly sales meeting and almost everyone is smoking a cigar and there's a cloud of smoke in the room because it's the 1950s. Probably if I come in and I give a big speech about this is everything a sales team should be doing, probably that 1950s manager would go like, get out of here, hippie. You don't know what you're talking about. Salespeople should just be closing. They should just know how to close, and we want closers. Okay? So the world that I'm preaching to you is the opposite of that. It's a world where the closing deals is a company-wide responsibility. It's a world where the sales team focuses on this, but they are not going to be isolated. They're going to need help from the rest of the organization to close deals. To say a little bit more of that, I'd like to jump over this next slide and bring us to this triangle. This is what I call the sales triangle. And imagine that this triangle is a table. It's a triangular table, and it has 3 sides. And this is a table where we are going to have a meeting with our potential client. Okay? So on one side of the table is the place for the salesperson. That's where they sit. And on the next side of the table, who should be present for this meeting? It's the meeting with the client. So who do we want here at this other side of the table?
Decision maker, client.
The client, that's enough. We need the client there. The salesperson is there, but there's another side of this table for a third actor. Any ideas who that might be?
Edis is saying decision maker.
The decision maker, that's over here on the prospect client side. So it could be more than one person on the prospect client side. So the decision maker is required. But over here on the other side of the table for this conversation would be someone from your organization who is not a salesperson. It could be an engineer. It could be an account management person. It could be the CEO. It could be the CFO. Someone who jumps in ad hoc into the sales process and who we can call by the name sales engineer. This person would jump in and out of the different sales stages if the salesperson invites them into the conversation. So when would we bring, let's pick the example of a engineer. When would it make sense to bring an engineer into, let's say, the discovery meeting, the first deep discussion with a prospect client? The salesperson decides to invite an engineer, a tech engineer in this case, into the meeting. For what purpose? Why would the salesperson do that? Why would they bring in either a financial person or an account management person, in this case, an IT engineer? What would be the reason to bring them into the meeting?
Can I reply?
Yeah, please.
Just wanted to get back, when you were saying during the discovery, we should ask questions. In my opinion, just to add one thing, it should be open questions.
Yes.
In that case, we give a chance to clients to describe us what is their problem and give us a chance to show how we can solve it.
That's right.
Once we did that, once we recognize the problem, this is a really good moment for a sales engineer to jump in and to solve the problem, if it's a technical problem, of course.
Okay. Excellent example. Thank you very much. So in addition to asking questions, the rule to live by is they all have to be open-ended questions. Never hear yourself asking a yes/no question. Like, are you, did you, will you, could you? All of those are a yes/no answer. All of those are prohibited for the entire sales process because they don't get you information. And every yes/no question has an open-ended form. For example, do you like my product? Will you be my client? What's the open version of do you like my product?
What do you think about my product?
Perfect, perfect. You could say, how do you like my product? Instead of do you like my product? And will you become my client? Could be like, what is the probability that we will sign a contract? And so the problem with yes/no questions is that you obligate someone to tell you yes or no. So if you say, do you like my product? And they liked it to the extent of 49%, I liked it, but they disliked it to the extent of 51%, I didn't like it, then you are obligating them to tell you, no, I did not like your product, because the majority rules, and there was 51% unlikability versus 49% likability. And you don't go beyond that in the conversation. So the same situation where they liked it 49% and disliked it 51% will get you an answer such as, well, you know what? I liked it somewhat. I liked it somewhat. That might be the 49%, which positions you to ask a follow-up question. I liked it somewhat. Oh, what are the things that you did not like so much? What are the things that you did like about it? And then that helps you to prolong a conversation. And then, like we've said a few times already in this conversation, the goal is to adapt yourself, if at all possible, to your environment. So whatever they liked about your product, maybe you can do more of that. Whatever they disliked about your product, find a way to eliminate that. You would adapt yourself to an environment where enough people are giving you that same feedback. So keep that in mind. Okay, so a sales engineer, yes, like stated before, this might be the person that helps to create the fit between the two companies once the salesperson has uncovered the problem. So that's a great example. I would also mention that a salesperson should have the empathy or the listening skills as part of their trait set when they reach out to a potential client. And the goal is to schedule a discovery meeting to get a sense that the decision maker we have contacted is prone to ask technical questions or is prone to ask questions about how we treat our clients. You know, once we sign, what is life like as your client? Then instead of an IT engineer, maybe you bring in someone from client success who's there and able to answer questions related to account management, to client success, how we treat our clients. If the salesperson gets the sense from the outreach phase that the person is very egotistical and very money driven, then don't bring in the IT engineer. Don't bring in the client success person. Tell your CEO, listen, I perceive a certain personality in this person I'm talking about. I think they need a lot of stuff that feeds their ego. Could you jump into this discovery meeting with me just to prove it to them that we would give them that kind of importance? Or if it's someone who seems like they're going to negotiate hard, then already bring in someone who is the accountant or the CFO into the as the sales engineer, so that there is already, so we can go as deep as possible already into what the equivalence might, what the balance might be between what they're willing to pay and what we're able to offer them in terms of price. Okay, so in this sense, the sales team is never alone, because if it's an IT engineer or if it's an account management person or whoever who is participating in some of the stages of the sales process, not all of them, but some of them where they can participate as guests, they too are hearing, they too have that connection to the environment, the feedback from the environment, the behavior of potential clients, and so on. Okay, you guys, so that is what I have to share with you regarding sales habits. Any questions, comments, or objections before we move on to the sales message, the creation of the sales message? Okay, in that case, go on, please.
Just an info for you. We are 1 hour and 30 now.
Yes.
Just to know how much time do we have more.
We have 30 minutes, right? According to schedule?
We can go a little bit further, but just bear in mind that.
Do we have a 2-hour slot, or what kind of time do we have?
We can prolong for 15-20 minutes. It's not a problem.
Okay, but can you tell me what the original is? Because in my calendar, I have 2 hours.
Yeah,
from you
2
guys.
hours. 2 hours.
Okay,
yes.
so if we can use that, and then, like you said, prolong a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, message creation. What do I mean by the sales message? We looked a little bit earlier that a salesperson, one of their main focuses is to reach out to potential clients. And what is their vehicle for reaching out? The answer to that is the sales message. So from my way of thinking, think of the sales message as a basket, a fruit basket. And in this fruit basket, there's only one of each type of fruit. There's only one banana, one apple, one orange, one pineapple, one kiwi, one melon, one watermelon. So it's a pretty full basket, but there's only one of each type of fruit. I'd like to keep that mental image in thinking of the sales message itself. So think of the sales message as a basket full of components. And the components are, instead of fruit in this case, they are refined statements. Refined statements that answer particular questions. Okay, so we are all very familiar with the concept of a sales value proposition. And the sales value proposition is a statement, and the incarnation of the sales value proposition is a sales value proposition statement. So literally a phrase that could be 8 or 10 or 12 words long, and it basically answers the question: if someone asks you, "Hey, what does your company do? What does your company do?" And our answer would be, "Oh, our company is helping certain kinds of companies to do a certain kind of thing." That would be the sales value proposition statement. The idea here is that when you create the components of the sales message and you fill up this basket with the distinct components, one component is the sales value proposition. Shortly, we're going to see what are the other components. Once you create this basket, it's official. It's the official message that your entire sales team needs to use. And anyone else in the organization also should have the same answer when someone asks them, "Hey, what does your company do?" It would always be the same consistent message from everyone in the sales team. So this is a strategic piece that you do not give to the sales team to create on their own. This is a type of strategic piece for which you would have, I would suggest, a committee that works on creating the sales message and the evolution of the sales message. The evolution would be based on having plenty of reliable feedback from potential clients and the environment to decide how to let the sales message evolve. So the first thing I'd like to share with you at this moment is, in case you do not feel that you have a mature sales message right now, or you don't have one at all, or if you have a mature sales message, but you would like to audit, to double check, to revisit your sales message, I want to share with you an exercise that you would do when you are brand new and you don't have a sales message created yet. Okay? So the first part of the exercise, it's a 3-part exercise that I'm going to recommend to you. The first one is to brainstorm about your company. This would be step 1 out of 3 of the sales message creation exercise. You would already form this committee of 3 people, maybe 4 people. And the first step to take with that committee is to start by brainstorming about the company. And the brainstorming would be basically, the task would be to tell everyone in the committee, describe this company, describe it in full, describe it until you're exhausted because you can't think of anything more to say. So if you really have to describe a lot of things until you're exhausted, then you're starting to look under the rug and look behind the doors to see what else I can describe, so that I've described everything. Okay? The first stage of the exercise is to let everyone in the committee take 10 minutes to write down on their laptop or on their notebook or anywhere everything and anything that they can think of which describes the company. So no one should look over their shoulder. Everyone should be writing independently. Who should you include in that committee? You could have someone from the sales team. If there's no sales team, then it could be the founders plus 1. A good idea of a plus 1 would be maybe someone who is not a founder but is very meaningful in your company. Another plus 1 could be someone from outside your company who is very familiar with your company, like a friend of the company. Maybe a former employee or someone who still has a lot of goodwill for you. The idea is to have a very diverse pool of people who would participate in the brainstorming. Okay, that's step 1. Any questions? If not, I'll move on to step 2. Step 2 of the message creation exercise would be to classify your thoughts. When all of the brainstorming is finished, the next step is to take every fragment out, to extract every independent fragment out of the brainstorming. So if someone wrote in bullet points, there's a good chance that every bullet is a fragment. Unless they compounded two ideas into one bullet point, then we just separate the two ideas into fragment 1 and fragment 2. And in some place, like a Google Doc or on a big whiteboard, you list fragment by fragment by fragment with no exception, leaving nothing out of everyone's brainstorming for 10 minutes. So when you're looking at every single fragment, and it could be a big wide panorama on a big big whiteboard of all the fragments that people brainstormed, the next task is to put some kind of classification next to every single fragment. Okay, and if you were to say something about your company right now, something that describes your company, just one fragment, can someone please tell me one thing that describes your company? Just one fragment, one thought, a short, concise, anything that describes your company. We need an example really quickly from someone. And there's no wrong answer because you know your company. Just tell me one simple thing about it. Let me check how many people are still with us here. So
17 more.
Okay, good. All right. So out of the 17 people who are still here, someone please tell me one simple thing about your company. It's really easy, guys. Just describe one simple thing about it that I don't know about your company. And
Okay, I can do it.
okay, thank you.
So my company is a startup project, which is a marketplace which gathers small and independent farmers and food producers.
Okay. All right. Very good. All right. So that was a few fragments put together, but thank you for offering that, because one fragment is we're a startup company. Another fragment is helping farmers. Another fragment is we're like a marketplace. Okay. So then let's take one of those fragments. Okay. We help farmers. As we classify our thoughts, we want to take every fragment and treat it like it's the answer to a question. So everyone, if the answer is we help farmers, what's the question?
What do you do?
Whom do we help?
Exactly. So whom do you help? That's the answer to we help farmers. And we are a startup company. That would be the answer to what? What question?
In which phase is your company?
Good. What kind of, great. What kind of company are you? So that just goes to prove anything we say about our company and we take it in fragments, we can think of a question that belongs to, that produces that answer. So that's the way that step 2 works. We classify each fragment by treating it as the answer to a question, but we limit it to the following 4 questions. Is it the answer to who and what? Is it the answer to what is in it for the client? So what does the client get out of it? Is it the answer to how is it unique? And what might be the 4th question? If there's who and what, what's in it for the client? How's it unique? What might be another question we can ask? Any ideas what the 4th one could be? All right, I'll give it to you. It's how does it work? Okay, you guys, so let's take, again, the example that we got. So we are a startup company. Which one of these questions is produces that answer?
Who?
Who and what, exactly. So we would classify that fragment as who and what. And then we help farmers. I would say that is also who and what, because it's still describing basically the field that you operate in. Okay, so forgive me for not remembering, but you did tell us what you do for farmers. That would be classified in what's in it for the client. So helping farmers to do what? Okay, so that is the second stage of the message creation exercise. We take all of those fragments and we decide. Remember that you have a committee of maybe 4 people. The task is to decide democratically. You take phrase by phrase and you contemplate, okay, we are a startup company. What is the consensus among all of us of what it answers? So it's pretty easy that it's who and what. But sometimes you get into small debates of, no, I think this is how it works. Someone says, no, of course not. That's what makes us unique. And that's a productive conversation. You have that conversation in the committee until the majority rules, yes, it's how it works, but that happens to be a feature which is our sustainable advantage, or sustainable competitive advantage. So we'll classify it in the how is it unique. Okay, so step 3 of the exercise brings us to this chart. This chart is where we want to convert the fragments, which we have classified, into the components that go into the basket. So this is what I would call the body of the sales message. The components here in this chart, I've named them assets. We are going to name them on the right-hand column. Over here on the left-hand column, again, are the questions. That means that we can look at everything we have classified into who and what and begin to work with that, like it's the dough of the pizza, start to shape the pizza and make it into a beautiful pizza that is acceptable to the market. Likewise, for each one of these segments, we work with it until we produce the beautiful, perfect assets on the right-hand column. Okay, so in the middle, I have another column, which, as you can see, is labeled emotion. We could also rename it as the reaction. Everything that comes from the who and what section, we are trying to get a certain reaction from the client. We're making these assets for the purpose of creating a reaction or an emotion. Okay, so let's see how creative you guys are, because I know usually when I'm asking you questions, it's just regarding a world that exists in my head. So how could you know the answers if they're all just in my head? But basically, when I'm telling you who and what I am, and I tell you I'm a startup and I help farmers, and I was established in 2017, and I used to be a farmer myself, and then I decided to make a jump and create an interesting marketplace. And all this background, all these key facts, basic facts about me, when I make them look pretty and I make them look well refined, very easy to understand and very easy to process, what emotion, what reaction am I looking for from the client by doing a good job of creating the statements that support the answer to the question, who and what am I? Any guesses?
Sympathy.
Sympathy, that's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
In
Young
fact,
and ambitious.
That would be some of the traits that describe you. The emotion that we want from the potential client, sympathy is a pretty good one. Here I've phrased it as trust. Through the key facts that we express, the background story that we learn to express, what we really just want is for this person to open the door. If I'm knocking on your door to tell you a lot more about me, the first step is to get you to open the door, okay? So we work a lot on creating key facts, such as we were founded in 2018, such as we were part of an incubator that believed in us, such as these are the 3 founders by name. These are our university titles, our university diplomas. These are the 9 clients that we have. These are all key facts. And the way we learn to phrase them should always try to build trust. Your background story about how I was a farmer too. And then I used to waste a lot of time doing this thing when I was farming. So I decided to leave that profession for now. One day I will come back and buy a farm again after I've gotten rich. But for now, I'm trying to solve farmers' problems through technology. All of that story, you learn to tell it in a way that, first of all the companies should be telling the same way. And the whole idea is, will you open the door, please? Because look at me. I look completely trustworthy. Okay? Then we come to, given the opportunity, then once a potential client trusts us, they should give us the opportunity to describe what's in it for our clients. What do we do for clients? Okay? And so we pull everything that we have segmented into what our clients get, what's in it for our clients. And by telling someone what our clients get out of what we do, we're also we're reaching for a reaction or an emotion by the potential client. It's no longer trust because we already established that. The next thing we want to build is, if anyone has any suggestions, what reaction do we want by telling people now, this is what we do for our clients. We help certain kinds of clients to do a certain kind of thing.
Whether it's relevant?
Right, actually. It's about relevance. When you tell someone, we help certain kinds of clients to do a certain kind of thing, good job. You did get into my mind. You did read my mind. So when you tell someone, we help certain kinds of clients to do a certain kind of thing, the name of the game at that moment is, you hope your client identifies with the group that you help, because part of the statement is, we help certain kinds of clients. So we hope they identify with that certain kind of client. And the certain kind of thing you help them to do, that of course is something that we want them to find to be relevant. So the assets that come out of this family of fragments is, once you put together your sales value proposition, we are helping X to do Y, and a list of benefits that you get on the side. So the sales value proposition is the steak. The benefits are the sides, like a potato and broccoli and whatever are the sides to the steak. Okay, so your value proposition must describe a pain that your potential clients should be feeling, could be feeling. Okay, and when you describe a pain to a potential client and they know they have that pain, then they must admit it. You might have clients who refuse to go to the doctor, but they have the pain, and the pain gets worse and worse and worse and worse, and they might still refuse to go to the doctor. That happens. But you hope that most of your clients, when you tell them that you're dealing with that pain, that they make the connection, and that's called relevance, being relevant. So if you tell someone, I'm helping certain kind of clients to do a certain kind of thing, and they say, oh, I must admit, we have that problem, then their next question naturally might be, okay, so you are helping certain clients to do a certain kind of thing, then, but I hear that from a few other companies, but why should I go with you? What's so special about you? And that brings us to the next cluster of assets that we derive from the next quadrant here. Once we have established trust and we establish that we are relevant, and the client asks, how are you unique? And we answer their questions, and our questions and our answers satisfy them in terms of understanding how we are unique, then at that moment, a new emotion will be created beyond trust, beyond relevance. Then what's the name of that? When you find that something is really unique. That's the moment where you become interested. So trust opens the door for you to seem relevant. Speaking about your uniqueness raises the relevance to interest. And we use the word interest too much, I think, in everyday life. And we forget what interest really means. Interest means, I must have that. I want that now. So the assets, by the way, are the assets that we create are unique selling points, or a sustainable competitive advantage. Once you have, again, told them how you are unique and someone finds that they must have you, realize that pretty much your product is sold. At this stage, your product is sold, but your message is still not finished. We still have the last segment. I'd like to comment really quickly on what it means, what unique selling points mean, and what a sustainable competitive advantage means. The difference between the two basically means that the sustainable competitive advantage is what you say if they ask you to compare yourself to a identical competitor, a nearly identical competitor. The unique selling points are something different. This is what you use to help people understand how you compare to something else. USPs are the simple process of choosing a reference point and choosing yourself and comparing the reference point between you and yourself. So it doesn't have to be a direct identical competitor. It could be a direct competitor, which is very different. And then it's really easy to show the differences. Or more interestingly, because you are all in a disruptive space, you are all startups that are disrupting the old way of doing things, then a great victim to choose when you are playing the bully, comparing yourself to something else is basically like being the bully. You're choosing something to beat up. So when you're choosing the old way of doing things and comparing yourself to it, again, it's super easy to show the differences between you and the old way of doing things. And this helps to raise people's interests. Basically, this is the point where people go like, oh, okay, now I get it. I didn't realize that before. So you're comparing yourself to the old way, and I see these huge attractive differences now. Or even if it's a competitor, but it's a very different competitor, then again, at that point, it's like, oh, I can perceive those big differences. So thank you. Now I'm interested. But when you have a nearly identical competitor, you have to be very honest with yourself regarding nearly identical competitors. And then you have to ask yourself, do I have a sustainable competitive advantage over the nearly identical competitor? So what would that look like? Maybe there's 3 of you. You are all identical. I'll say more about this later, but realize that if it's 3 of you and you're identical competitors, there's enough market out there for the 3 of you. But that's a side issue. A sustainable competitive advantage looks like today there are 3 of you, and tonight you have a new rollout. You have a release, and the release puts a shiny red button right in the middle of your console. And so tomorrow morning that button is there, and that button is not on anybody's console because you developed it and rolled it out overnight. When the client clicks that shiny red button, everything works 10 times better, 10 times faster than before, and only you have it. So now you have a competitive advantage over your competitors. So let's imagine that it took you 18 months to develop that shiny red button. You kept it a secret, so no one even thought, no one dreamt about creating that shiny red button among your competitors. So now you could argue it will take them also 18 months to create the shiny red button. So during the 18 months that you have the shiny red button and they do not have the shiny red button, what can you achieve? If anyone is still listening, what can you achieve having the shiny red button during 18 months when your formerly identical competitors have still not configured the shiny red button?
You have a unique selling proposition, or you're unique in a way, or a special, or whatever.
You have the chance to take over the market. You have the chance to become the market leader during those 18 months. So would it be sustainable? Well, if you just sat on your hands for 18 months, then after 18 months, it wouldn't be a sustainable competitive advantage anymore, but you would be the market leader. But normally, the reason that you made that shiny red button is probably the reason that in 12 months and in 18 months, you'll have something new again and something new again, which always has you as the leader of the market that everyone copies. Okay, so when you're showing USPs and you can show a sustainable competitive advantage, by the way, don't be afraid if you don't have a sustainable competitive advantage. It's not always realistic. It's not always possible. If there are 3 of you and you're identical competitors, there's enough market for all of you. You just need to go and pick the ones that belong to you and let the other ones go to your other clients, to the other competitors. The clients are the ones that decide. Okay, so once you have trust, relevance, and interest, all that is left is to describe how it works. So look at all my features, look at all my terms and conditions. This is how it works to do business with me. Your interest is already there. So the product is already sold. Consider that in learning to describe your product features and your terms and conditions in the best refined, clearest way, you're helping the client to conduct their process, their choosing, their decision process, their due diligence is the word that I'm looking for. If they trust you, it's relevant, they're interested, all that's left is for them to perform their due diligence, meaning they're going to run a check if you have all the features they need. They're going to run a check if they can live with our terms and conditions. So that is either going to make you or break you, but in essence, the product already was sold. Okay, so the emotion we're looking for is conviction. That just means that they are convinced, that their decision is, I'm ready to buy. Okay, you guys, so in 3 minutes, I'm just going to go into the next slide so that then we can have 15 minutes of any last comments or Q&A left, because I'll back up again. I've highlighted the sales value proposition in red because this entire basket of components is necessary, but the sales value proposition is the one that will make you or break you, because it's your one chance to tell someone, we are helping X to do Y. So the variable X is the kind of company you're helping. Y is describing the solution or the problem or the pain point that you hope people can understand from your value proposition. The key to the sales value proposition is to make sure that it is accurate, so you're telling the truth, and that it is specific, that it's not up here in the clouds, it's down here on the ground. It is very specific in the way that you're helping, and overall, you have to make sure every word makes sense, that none of the words are lost or they distract people. So it's a big task and you usually modify your sales value proposition several times until it finally seems to communicate what you need to communicate. Okay, so that is the formula that I'll leave you with as you try to audit your current sales value proposition or create a new one. What a sales value proposition does not sound like is, we have a tool that does this. Okay, that's a product focus. So your entire sales process could be product focused. Those are usually going to fail. A successful sales process is value focused, where you basically imagine you're playing a game where you're hiding the product behind your back, but you're telling them the value that you bring to your clients. And then you let them ask you, oh, really? And how are you doing that? Then you can pull the product from behind your back and say, oh, we're doing it like this. Okay, so the purpose is to hook the targeted person, that the targeted person just from that phrase says, oh, yes, I get it, I understand, and it's relevant. And second, you would hope that it creates an emotional reaction. So emotion can be like love. Emotion can be hate. The opposite of an emotion is the only thing you need to be afraid of, which is complete indifference. So when you tell someone, we're helping X to do Y, when they go like, oh, isn't that nice? Have a nice day. That's indifference. But an emotional reaction would look like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I've been waiting my entire life. That would be an emotional reaction. but that's not the only one necessary. Another emotional reaction could be like, listen, guy, I've heard that value proposition so many times. And I've walked into contracts and deals with companies who said they could do the same thing. And again and again and again, we've always been disappointed. That would be an emotional reaction. Now, is that an emotional reaction we can work with? This last example? That's the last question I'll ask you today. Is that an emotional reaction we can work with? That angry reaction? Should I repeat my question?
Please do one more time.
Okay. So when I say we are helping X to do Y, it's your value proposition. We hope it creates an emotional reaction, that the decision maker reacts emotionally to it because they see that it's relevant. The opposite of an emotional reaction would be indifference. If you guys know the meaning of that word, that's when someone doesn't care, doesn't react. So if you tell someone we are helping X to do Y, and then they pat you on the shoulder and say, oh, isn't that nice, fellow? And then they say, have a nice day. That means there was no connection, no emotional reaction there. Opposite of that is an emotional reaction, where someone could say, oh my God, I love your product. I've been waiting for it my entire life. That would be an emotional reaction. Another example of an emotional reaction would be if someone said, like, listen, buddy, I've heard so many people tell me that they're helping X to do Y, and I have signed contracts, and I have wasted time, and everyone has disappointed me until today. That's another type of an emotional reaction. And my question is, can we work with that last one? Let's just say that if someone says, oh my gosh, I love your product, I love your value proposition, I've been waiting for it my whole life. Yeah, probably we can work with that reaction. But
last one is the second best thing that can happen to us, because
the
they are throwing us a bone.
Exactly. Yes, we can work with the reaction, oh my God, I've been disappointed so many times. First of all, it shows you they do have the pain that's in my value prop. And then it shows you they have put money into it. And then it shows you he's expressing himself to me. So
now discover.
Now discover. I have a wide open door to ask him, oh, well, tell me more about that. Who disappointed you? Why did they disappoint you? What do you think went wrong? What would you like to see happening differently? All of that is gold, because it helps you to get to the bottom of the problem, and it helps you to make a case if you know you can overcome all of the things that the other people did wrong. Okay, so basically that is sales habits, and this was sales message creation, and I hope this has been useful to some extent, you guys. Thank you for listening to me. We have a few minutes. We're going over time, but we have a few minutes. If any of you have anything you would like to add from your own experience, or any questions or any objections to anything we have discussed today.
I think it's really important, in order to set the right message creation process and to do it right, you have to also know who is your client, you know. So maybe step before that is to identify your ideal client persona. Who are you talking to? I think that's also really important.
Definitely. So a little bit later, I think it's in 2 weeks, before we start talking about the outreach methodology, we are going to look at something I call the creation of the wish list. And at that moment, by the time we arrive to that step where we should create a list of target clients, super important to have a decision made on who we are going after. So the personas, the types of companies that we want to go after. There is both client definition, and then there is the definition of the decision maker we need to go for inside of those individual companies in the target list.
Both crucial.
Both are crucial, yeah, exactly. If you get to a moment where clients approach you and you have such a solid picture of what kind of clients you want to be working with, it enables you to turn away some people, to tell them, I'm sorry, we're not working with companies like yours. Or even further, to a person, I'm glad that you came to us. If their company does fit the definition of our client profile, to have the strength to tell them, I'm glad you came to us. Thank you very much for that. Yes, I would be happy to have a further meeting with you, but I require that you have this particular decision maker for that meeting. So it gives you the strength to lay down your conditions if someone approaches you, if that makes sense. Okay, I was really happy to have a lot of you. I see that a lot of you are saying goodbye in the chat, and I'm here for a little bit longer if there are any further questions or comments.
We have 5 to 10 minutes more for questions if you are open for, so just ask.
Yeah. Yep.
If not, okay. If not, I would like to thank you all for participating on this meeting, this webinar.
Thank you.
We will share the link to this webinar if someone came later or missed some part of it. So it will be online. We will share the link, and also we will share the link for the registration for the next one, which will happen next Tuesday. So I hope that we'll meet again in 7 days.
Perfect. Stay healthy, everyone.